Did you know your brain lies to you almost 100% of the time, even about the things going on with your kids? In this video, I'm going to show you how to get on top of that and stop living from lies. You've probably heard the phrase, your thoughts create your feelings, but what does that even mean? When I heard that and started understanding how that was playing out in my life, everything started changing for me, especially the things I was experiencing with my daughter who was going through a crisis of her own for a lot of years. I realized that everything going on in my life, all the things that I thought were so unfair and so difficult, really unbearable, were not really a problem with what was happening with my child. It was actually a problem with me. The truth is, we're really pretty similar. You're just like me, and I'm just like you. We all face trials and obstacles, really heavy things sometimes. And the way we can get some perspective on that is to understand that our brain is often lying to us, and we don't have to believe what it's telling us. So every single thing we do in our lives is because we're trying to feel something. Maybe we're trying to feel less of something, we don't want to feel worse, or maybe we're trying to feel better about something. Feelings are actually what motivates us as humans. Motivates us to do the next thing or to respond in some way. When that happens, we think our feelings are telling us the truth about something, but that's where we really want to stop and think about it, because our feelings are only telling us what our thoughts are, not the truth. It's our brain's job to keep us alive. There's two important parts to your brain though, the upper brain, which is like your higher thinking, your problem solving, your analyzing, and then we also have the lower brain. And while the lower brain is awesome, it can get us in trouble if left unmanaged, because the lower brain only has three goals: safety, ease, and pleasure. That's it. Thousands of years ago, this part of the brain kept humans alive and reproducing. And thousands of years ago, the brain needed to constantly scan for danger to stay alive. People could really, literally die at any given moment. And thousands of years ago, humans needed to do the easiest thing possible to conserve energy, because who knew when the next meal would be? Also, being in a tribe made life safer and more fulfilling. You notice I said thousands of years ago a lot. That's because over the last bunch of thousands of years, we've all evolved. Today, we're generally safe all day, every day. And today, we generally have an abundance of food to eat, and we don't need to conserve energy because we actually know when our next meal's coming. And we don't need to be part of a tribe to keep us safe. We're fine on our own. But the lower brain doesn't know that. It didn't evolve with us. It's still functioning from that same place of safety, ease, and pleasure. And you need to know the lower brain is always the first responder. When you think of a first responder, it's easy to think of like the first person on a crisis. And that's the same for your lower brain. Whenever anything comes up, your lower brain is going to be the first responder. It's going to give you your first thoughts or the first story you're going to tell yourself about something that's happening. That means your first thoughts might often be lies that might bring up a lot of difficulty and drama, even though it doesn't feel like it at first. It's like your brain is constantly scanning the world for what might go wrong at any given moment, for what would be uncomfortable. Here are a few examples of what that might look like. Your lower brain might tell you that you need to walk around on eggshells and be so careful what you say to your child, because you might say the wrong thing that sends them over the edge. You might notice in the afternoon when your kid's getting home from school, you start to feel anxious. You're not sure if it's going to be hard and take a lot of energy when they walk through that door. That's the lower brain telling you something could go wrong. Another example might be in the morning when you go to wake up your child. You feel dread, nervousness, because you don't know what you're going to find on the other side of that door. That also is just the lower brain telling you that something could go wrong at any given moment. Another thing that I found with our child is that it was hard to follow through on consequences, because the lower brain kept telling me, if you do this, you might push her over the edge, or it could be too hard or too easy. All the times those feelings come up, it's just the lower brain making our life feel unmanageable and a little bit out of control. Okay, so just in recap, we have two parts to the brain, the higher brain and the lower brain. The lower brain's always gonna be the first responder until we tell our brain what to think, and it's always gonna be that doomsday voice, gonna be the voice that is catastrophizing everything, worst case scenario. Every time, that's your lower brain. Here's how we get on top of that. So the first step to escape that lower brain thinking and go to higher brain thinking is to do what I like to call some mind hygiene. This process is called a brain dump, and it's super foundational to the skills that I'm going to teach you. It's where you're going to take everything out of your mind and write it down on paper. If you did nothing but this for the next 30 days, it would change your life completely. This is what will take a reactive life and make it into something that's really intentional. So let me explain how to do this, and then I'm going to ask you to pause and give it a try. So a brain dump is where you write without stopping for 10 minutes. We literally want to empty every thought out of your head without judgment. There's no judgment about your thoughts, they're just thoughts. But our thoughts are actually creating how we show up, even the ones we're not aware of. So you're just gonna write and write and write for 10 minutes without stopping. If you get a little stuck, I want you to ask some questions of yourself. Some things like, why is that a problem for me? Whatever you just wrote down. What would happen if things were different? What am I afraid of here? Lots of times we tell ourselves what's happening factually, like, my child yelled at me. What we want to ask is, why is that a problem for me? Why did that make me upset? What am I worried about? That's where we're gonna really start dumping out our thoughts and get to the bottom of what's going on for you. Okay, for example, maybe you wrote down, my son stays up all night. We all know that can bring up a lot of drama for us when our kids stay up in the night and they're not doing well. So instead of just leaving it at that and going on to the next thought, I want you to pause and ask yourself some questions, those that I was talking about. Like, so why is that a problem for me? Why don't I like it when he stays up all night? What am I worried about? What am I thinking about that's gonna happen in the future? That's where we're gonna get a true brain dump, and you're gonna find out all the things going on in your brain that are causing you issues. Trust me when I tell you this process can change everything for you. So just pause your video right now, get a paper and a pen, set your timer for 10 minutes, and just dump out everything in your mind. Pick a subject. What's something that's really bothering you right now, or that you wish were different in your life? And just go for it. Write for 10 minutes with no judgment about your thoughts, and pause and ask yourself some of those questions as you go along, and then come back and I'll tell you what to do with it. Revealing what's going on in your brain is a super important step, because that's where you're gonna act from. That's how you're gonna show up with your child. That's where you're gonna get a lot of feelings from. So we wanna really know what's going on in there. So second step, remember step 1 was to do the 10-minute brain dump. Step 2 is to go ahead and look through that brain dump and sort out the story you're telling yourself. We wanna find 2 things in there. We wanna find what's fact and what's thought. And our thoughts are actually just the story we're using to explain what's happening. Most of our brain dumps really don't have very many facts, if any. It's usually just all of our thoughts, but we wanna go through and really show our brains whether we're having facts or thoughts in there. So here's how you do that. You just take a pencil and I want you to underline or circle any facts that you have written down in your brain dump. Now here's what we gotta clarify though. What makes a fact? A fact has to be super factual. And I want you to be really hard on yourself about that. It needs to be something that could literally be proven in a court of law. And if you think it could be proven in a court of law, I want you to ask yourself, okay, what evidence would I give in a court of law? What evidence do I have at my house that I could take? This has to be something that's measured or that you've documented. Maybe you have a diagnosis. Something like that would be factual. Another fact can be words someone said, the exact words someone said. So just pause again for just a second and go through and underline any facts that you have in your brain dump. All right, how many facts do you have underlined? Maybe 1, 2, probably not more than that. Most of our brain dumps just don't really have that many facts in them. But that's really good news for us, because the rest are just thoughts, and thoughts are optional. That's where we get power over everything that's overwhelming us in our lives. I want to show you from an actual thought download that I got from a client how this really can make a difference in your life. And don't worry, I changed the name on this. This is the worst thing we have ever gone through. I don't know what to do. I can't handle this anymore. I'm exhausted all the time. I'm scared that I'll say something wrong. I hate this and I don't know how to change it. I don't think anyone understands what we're facing. People try to help, but they don't really know what's happening to Sam. She hates herself and I'm afraid of what she'll do to herself. I'm afraid she might decide not to live anymore, or she could run away and I won't know where she is. All of my focus is on her and trying to help her get better, but nothing is helping. I hate watching her suffer and be in so much pain. This sucks. I'm worried all of the time. She never sleeps, and that's making things even worse. I'm always scared when she hides out in her bathroom for so long. She should just go to bed. It would be so much better for her to sleep. I feel so helpless. I don't know what else we can do to help her. We've tried 3 different medications and nothing is helping. Why can't she see how amazing she is? I miss how she used to be and I can't stand watching her sink into this new reality. Okay, I want you to take a look at the screen and let's look at this and find the facts in there. Maybe you picked some up as I was talking. There's not very many. In fact, I think there's just 1. We've tried 3 different medications. Boom, that part is a fact. But do you see, the client told me more than that. She said, and nothing is helping. That part becomes a thought, right? We can't really prove in court that nothing's helping, so it's not a fact. But the fact that we've tried 3 different medications, that's a fact. We could prove that. We could show the medications, we could show the prescriptions, we could get doctor's notes, all those kinds of things. So you can see kind of the difference there between a thought and a fact. Another word for a fact is a circumstance. They're kind of the things that we don't really get to change in our life. They just happen. Everybody has them. But here's something you may not have ever heard before and can kind of be hard to get your head around. Circumstances are not painful. Circumstances or facts are actually neutral until we have a thought about them. When we have a thought about them, then that's where we decide if they're good or bad. Let's take what we were just reading as an example. We've tried 3 different medications. The client had the thought and nothing's helping. So that was the story that they were telling themselves about the fact, right? But I want to show you that the 3 different medications are neutral because someone else in the world could be having a totally different thought. Something along the lines of, I'm so glad there's more medications we can try, or we're gonna totally figure this out and get through it. Do you see how we can choose whether we're telling ourselves a story that makes us feel better or makes us feel more out of control and worse? So I want you to take a second and look at the facts on your sheet. Can you prove to your brain, force your brain to see that your fact, no matter how painful it is actually neutral? And the way you can do that is by asking yourself, what's a different story that I could tell about this? What's another thought I could have about this? Remember, it's natural that our brains go to this negative place or this place of doomsday because the lower brain is the first responder. And doing a brain dump and looking at what are facts and what are thoughts and really showing your brain that facts can actually be neutral and we can decide what we want to think about them is where you're gonna get leverage over all the things that feel so heavy. Sometimes we take our problem and we tell ourselves a story and we think it is fact, all of it. But getting some leverage over it and really looking at what's a fact and what's a thought is gonna give you a lot of peace and just open you up and keep you from getting so stuck. Okay, so we learned about our higher brain, our lower brain, doing a brain dump, finding out what's fact and what's thought. What does that really help you with? How does that matter? So what I'm gonna tell you might sound a little crazy, especially while things feel really heavy and dangerous in your life right now. But what I wanna tell you is that nothing in your life is a problem. Nothing until you make it a problem with this story you tell yourself about it, actually what make it a problem. Do you see why this is such good news? If every fact you have is neutral. It's not good or bad until you decide the story you're going to tell with your thoughts, then that puts you in a place of power in your life where you're no longer a victim held hostage to whatever story you've been telling yourself. Because remember, every thought is optional. So yes, I'm telling you that nothing in your life right now is a problem until you start having thoughts about it. And thoughts are optional. This can be unsettling at first, but I promise you it's so empowering when you get your head around it and you start doing the work of doing those brain dumps and separating out your facts and your thoughts and taking a look at that thinking and seeing if that thinking is actually helping you show up as the parent you want to be for your child who's struggling right now. Knowing how to brain dump will empower you because you'll know how to separate fact from thought. So the next natural question is, how do I change my thoughts so that they do empower me? So go ahead and click this video because I'm going to teach you how to change your thoughts to become a powerful parent. You'll be so glad you did.